Good evening, my friends. Tonight I want to share with you something that may disturb you and yet liberate you completely. As I speak to you now, somewhere in this great city of ours, a man sleeps in a mansion worth millions, and another man sleeps beneath a bridge. Both are dreaming, but only one of them knows that he is the dreamer. Before this evening is over, I will have shattered everything you believe about wealth, about money, about success itself. Stay with me. Just last week, after my lecture here in Los Angeles, a young man approached me, well-dressed fellow, articulate, seemingly intelligent. He said to me, "Mr. Goddard, I have been faithfully visualizing wealth for 6 months now. Every day I see myself with money. I feel it in my hands. I imagine counting it. But nothing, absolutely nothing, has changed in my outer world. What am I doing wrong?" I looked at this man for a long moment, and then I asked him one simple question that turned his face white. "My friend, when you imagine having this wealth, do you imagine yourself getting it from somewhere, or do you imagine yourself as the man who already has it?" He stammered. He struggled. And in that moment of silence, he understood the difference between begging and assuming. You see, my friends, there is only one difference. One difference between what you call a billionaire and what you call a pauper. That difference is not money. That difference is not opportunity. That difference is not luck or family or education or any external circumstance whatsoever. The only difference is assumption. The man you call wealthy assumes that he is wealthy. The man you call poor assumes that he is not wealthy. But here is what will shock you to your very core. Both assumptions are equally false. Both are states of consciousness. Both are simply different dreams, being dreamed by the same dreamer. Every billionaire whose name you know, every fortune you admire, they did not first become wealthy and then develop what you call a wealthy mindset. No, my friends, they first assumed the consciousness of wealth, and the world, being nothing more than consciousness pushed out, had no choice but to conform to that assumption. There is no such thing as a billionaire. You see, there is only consciousness assuming itself to be a billionaire. Let me tell you of a woman I knew personally in New York City. Her name was Sarah, and she worked as a secretary for a small law firm. Her salary? $40 a week. In 1940, mind you, barely enough to survive. But Sarah discovered something that her friends, her family, even her employer never knew. Every evening when she returned to her tiny apartment, she would lie upon her bed and enter into a most extraordinary state. She would feel herself, not see herself, not imagine herself, but feel herself signing checks for thousands of dollars. Not someday, not when her ship came in, not when she won the lottery, right now. She would feel the pen in her hand, the weight of it, the smoothness of the check as she wrote $10,000 with the casual ease of a woman for whom such amounts were routine. How does it feel? She would ask herself to write a check for $10,000 and feel nothing but the mild boredom of paying another bill. Her friends thought she had lost her mind. "Sarah," they would cry, "you make $40 a week. Stop this nonsense. Come back to reality." But Sarah knew something they did not know. She knew that feeling is the secret, not wishing, not hoping, not believing. Feeling the reality of the wish fulfilled. For 3 months she lived this way. By day she typed letters and answered phones for $40 a week. But by night, in consciousness, she was a woman of means. Then came the call that changed everything, or rather that revealed what consciousness had already established. A lawyer in Boston informed her that a distant uncle, a man she had met only once as a child at a family gathering, a man whose face she could barely recall, had left her his entire estate, $40,000. But here is the part that proves everything I am teaching you tonight. When that lawyer placed the check in Sarah's hands, she felt no surprise whatsoever, no shock, no "I can't believe this is happening." She felt natural. She felt like this was exactly what should happen to a woman like her. Because in consciousness, my friends, she had been a wealthy woman for months. The outer world was simply catching up to what she had already assumed to be true. Now I must tell you something that will disturb every belief you have ever held about the nature of reality itself. You are not trying to attract wealth from some external source. You are wealth. You are every billionaire who has ever lived. You are every fortune that has ever been accumulated. You are every palace, every mansion, every empire that has ever existed. How can I make such an outrageous claim? Because, my friends, there is only one consciousness in all the universe. Everything you see out there, every person, every building, every dollar bill is nothing more than your own consciousness pushed out and made to appear separate from you. The billionaire is not separate from you. The billionaire is you, playing a role in your own infinite dream. But here is the tragedy, the great tragedy of human experience. You think you need to get something you don't have. You think wealth is something external that must come to you from somewhere else. This is the fundamental illusion that keeps humanity in bondage. You cannot get what you already are, my friends. You can only assume it, you can only feel it, you can only know it. Every dollar that exists is your dollar. Every business empire is your empire. But you have hypnotized yourself into believing you are separate from your own creations, and so you experience them as belonging to others. The poverty you experience is not punishment from God. It is not bad luck. It is not the economy or your background or your circumstances. Poverty is simply the result of assuming you are poor. Nothing more, nothing less. And that assumption, maintained day after day, year after year, hardens into the facts of your experience. But and here is your hope. Wealth is equally simply the result of assuming you are wealthy. And that assumption, maintained with equal persistence, will harden into fact just as surely. I once spoke with a gentleman who had the privilege of meeting John D. Rockefeller in his final years. This man expected to encounter someone obsessed with money, someone who calculated profit and loss every waking moment. Instead, he told me, he met a man who seemed almost indifferent to money. Not careless with it, but as naturally comfortable with it as you or I are comfortable with breathing. Mr. Goddard, he said to me, Rockefeller spoke of money the way most men speak of the weather, as something so natural, so assumed, that it required no special thought or attention. You see, Rockefeller had long ago stopped thinking to money, and had learned to think from money. He had so completely assumed the consciousness of wealth that money flowed to him, not because he pursued it, but because he had become the type of man to whom money naturally flows. There is a principle here that I want you to grasp. The moment you begin to worry about money is the moment you stop having easy access to it. Why? Because worry is assumption of lack, and what you assume, you must experience. But consider this, when do you worry about your next breath? Never. Why? Because you assume you will breathe. You take it completely for granted. And because you assume it so naturally, breathing happens without effort, without anxiety, without conscious direction. The relationship a truly wealthy person has with money is identical to your relationship with breathing, natural, assumed, taken for granted. So how do you make this transformation? How do you move from the consciousness that assumes lack to the consciousness that assumes abundance? Not by working harder at your job, not by starting new businesses, not by buying lottery tickets or making investments or any external action whatsoever. You do it by asking yourself certain questions and answering them not with your mind, but with your feeling nature. First, how would I feel if money were never ever a concern in my life? Not how would you feel if you had money. That assumes you don't have it now. But how would you feel if money was simply never something you had to think about? Feel that peace. Feel that freedom. Feel that relief. Let it fill your entire being until it becomes natural to you. Second, how would I move through the world if wealth were my natural state? A wealthy man doesn't hurry to catch buses to save $2. A wealthy man doesn't calculate the tip to the penny. A wealthy man doesn't automatically buy the cheapest version of everything out of fear. Feel how you would walk. Feel the quiet confidence. Feel the natural generosity. Feel the assumption that you can afford whatever you truly desire. Third, and most importantly, what would I do with my time if money were no object? This is crucial, my friends, because wealthy people don't spend their mental energy thinking about money. They spend it on their passions, their interests, their contributions to the world. Feel yourself living from inspiration rather than from desperation. But here is the technique that will transform your life if you apply it faithfully. Tonight, when you retire to your bed, do not pray for money to come to you. Do not visualize money arriving from external sources. Do not think about specific amounts or methods. Simply feel yourself as someone who has always been financially free. Feel how natural it is for you to live without financial stress. Feel how boring money questions have become for you, because money simply flows in your life as naturally as breath flows in your body. This is not make-believe, my friends. This is assumption. An assumption, though false, if sustained, will harden into fact. Let me share with you one of the most remarkable demonstrations of this principle that I have ever witnessed. A man came to see me, I shall call him Robert, who was $50,000 in debt. This was in 1963, mind you. In today's currency, that would be several times more. He was facing bankruptcy, divorce, the loss of his home. He was, as they say, at the end of his rope. Mr. Goddard, he said to me, I need a miracle, I need money immediately, or I lose everything I have worked for. I said to him, what I am saying to you tonight, my friend, you don't need money. You need to stop being the man who is broke and start being the man who is wealthy. But I am broke, he protested. Look at my bank statements. Look at my debts. These are facts. No, I replied. These are your current assumptions hardened into facts. But assumptions can be changed. And when assumptions change, facts must follow. This is law. Robert was skeptical, but desperation made him willing to try anything. I gave him one simple instruction for 30 consecutive nights. As he prepared for sleep, he was to assume himself debt-free and abundantly supplied. Not becoming debt-free, being debt-free. Not getting wealthy, being wealthy. He was to feel the relief of having no financial pressure whatsoever. He was to feel the ease of paying every bill without calculation. He was to feel the joy of being able to help others financially. During his days, he continued to face his creditors, to deal with his apparent reality. But every night, in consciousness, he lived in a completely different world, a world where he was prosperous and free. For 27 days, nothing changed in his outer world. His creditors still called. The bills still arrived. The pressure mounted. But on the 28th day, he received a telephone call that changed everything. A business venture he had invested in 5 years prior. An investment so small and apparently insignificant that he had completely forgotten about it, had suddenly become extraordinarily valuable. His tiny stake had grown to over $200,000. Now here is what convinced me beyond all doubt that this was not coincidence, not luck, not fortunate timing. When Robert received that call, he was not surprised. Just like Sarah with her inheritance, he felt natural about it. He felt like it made perfect sense for a man like him, a prosperous man, to receive such news. Because in consciousness he had been wealthy for nearly a month. This brings me to the fundamental law that governs all human experience, a law I call the law of assumption. Whatever you assume to be true about yourself will be expressed in your world. Not sometimes, not if you're lucky, not if the conditions are right. Always, automatically, without exception. You think you are poor because your bank account is empty. I tell you, your bank account is empty because you assume you are poor. The assumption comes first, always. The facts follow. But Mr. Goddard, you say, what about my circumstances? What about the economy? What about my lack of education, my poor family background, my current debts? Here is a truth that will either liberate you or disturb you completely. Your circumstances are not the cause of your financial condition. Your circumstances are the result of your assumptions about your financial condition. Every advantage that wealthy people seem to have, wealthy families, good educations, fortunate connections, these were attracted to them by their consciousness. Their assumptions created the very circumstances that appear to have created their success. You say, but they were born into wealth. I say to you, they chose to be born into wealthy families because their consciousness was already aligned with wealth. There are no accidents in an ordered universe. You say, but they had better opportunities. I tell you, opportunities are created by consciousness, not the reverse. The same opportunity presented to poverty consciousness will be missed or wasted. Presented to wealth consciousness, it will be recognized and maximized. Stop waiting for your circumstances to improve. Your circumstances are waiting for you to change. When you change your assumption about money, money must change its behavior toward you. Now let me give you a complete method, a daily practice that will revolutionize your relationship with money if you apply it consistently. Each morning, before you rise from your bed, before you check your telephone or think about your problems, spend 5 minutes feeling grateful for your abundant financial state. Not hoping for abundance, feeling it as present reality. Say inwardly, I am wealthy. Money flows to me naturally and easily. I am the kind of person who never worries about money. But do not merely say these words. Feel their truth. Throughout your day, whenever thoughts of money arise, when you pay a bill, when you see something you desire, when you check your bank balance, pause and ask yourself, how would a naturally wealthy person experience this moment? A wealthy person paying bills feels natural about it, not stressed. A wealthy person seeing something desirable doesn't feel longing. They simply decide whether they want it. A wealthy person checking their bank balance feels satisfaction, not anxiety. Each evening, and this is the most crucial practice of all, as you prepare for sleep, enter completely into the consciousness of wealth. Feel yourself living in financial freedom. But here is the key. Don't imagine dramatic changes happening overnight. Instead, imagine feeling completely natural about being wealthy. Imagine being comfortable with abundance. Imagine being the kind of person for whom wealth is normal, expected, as natural as breathing. Do this faithfully for 30 days. Not 29, not 31. 30 days exactly. And I promise you, not hope but promise, you will witness what the world calls miracles, but which are simply consciousness expressing itself. As we come to the close of this evening together, let me leave you with the most important truth of all. You are not trying to become wealthy, my friends. You are trying to remember that you already are wealthy. In the deepest sense, in the most fundamental reality, there is no such thing as a poor person anywhere in this universe. There are only infinitely abundant beings who have temporarily forgotten their true nature, who have assumed limitation, who have accepted the illusion of lack. Your natural state is abundance. Your birthright is prosperity. Your true identity is wealth itself, for consciousness, which is what you are, lacks nothing. The billionaire has not achieved something you lack. The billionaire has simply remembered something you have forgotten. As we come to the close of this evening together, let me leave you with the most important truth of all. You are not trying to become wealthy, my friends. You are trying to remember that you already are wealthy. In the deepest sense, in the most fundamental reality, there is no such thing as a poor person anywhere in this universe. There are only infinitely abundant beings who have temporarily forgotten their true nature, who have assumed limitation, who have accepted the illusion of lack. Your natural state is abundance. Your birthright is prosperity. Your true identity is wealth itself, for consciousness, which is what you are, lacks nothing. The billionaire has not achieved something you lack. The billionaire has simply remembered something you have forgotten. As we come to the close of this evening together, let me leave you with the most important truth of all. You are not trying to become wealthy, my friends. You are trying to remember that you already are wealthy. In the deepest sense, in the most fundamental reality, there is no such thing as a poor person anywhere in this universe. There are only infinitely abundant beings who have temporarily forgotten their true nature, who have assumed limitation, who have accepted the illusion of lack. Your natural state is abundance. Your birthright is prosperity. Your true identity is wealth itself, for consciousness, which is what you are, lacks nothing. The billionaire has not achieved something you lack. The billionaire has simply remembered something you have forgotten. My friends, the choice is yours alone. Will you continue to dream that you are limited? Or will you awaken to the truth of your limitless nature? Will you persist in assuming scarcity? Or will you claim your inheritance of abundance? The power has always been yours. The wealth has always been yours. The choice has always been yours. Remember, assumption, though false, if sustained, will harden into fact. Assume wisely, my friends. Assume boldly. Assume persistently. Your wealthy self is not someone you must become. It is someone you must remember you have always been. Good evening.